Hello and welcome friends, my name is Akash and I'm here to give you certain tips on how to speak fluent English. Tip number 1. Do not study grammar. Yes, you heard it correct. Do not study grammar. Well, this rule might sound strange to a lot of students, but yes, it's a fact and it's the most important rule you need to follow. If you want to pass an examination, then study grammar. But if you want to be fluent in English, then learn English without studying grammar. You will always think of the rules while making sentences and won't be able to speak naturally like most of the native English speakers speak. Remember, only a small fraction of English speakers know more than 20% of the grammar rules. I can confidently say this. Many of my students know more details of English grammar than I do, but they can only make few good English sentences. I ask many of my friends who speak English well some of the grammar questions, and very few of them can answer them correctly. But yes, they can speak English well. They can speak, write, read, and communicate effectively. In short, I want to say, don't get confused with the rules of grammar. Learn the usage of grammar, how you can use grammar in sentences. Tip number 2. Learn and study English phrases. Many of the students study a lot of vocabulary, but still struggle putting these words together to form a proper sentence. It amazes me. A lot of my students know more words, but they still struggle to create a correct sentence. The reason is they didn't learn phrases. When children learn English as a language, they learn words and phrases together. Likewise, you need to learn words and phrases together. For example, you may know 1,000 words, but still struggle to make one correct sentence. But if you know one phrase, you'll be amazed to know how many correct sentences you can make. If you know 100 phrases, you'll be surprised to know how many correct English sentences you can make. And finally, if you know only 1,000 phrases, you'll be almost a fluent English speaker. So don't spend hours and hours learning just words or vocabulary. Instead, spend that time learning words and phrases together. Next, when you want to create an English sentence, do not translate words from your mother tongue. The order of words is probably completely different from your mother tongue. By doing this, you'll be slow and the sentences what you'd make would be completely incorrect. Instead, learn words and phrases together so that you don't have to think of words when you're saying a sentence. Another problem while translating is, you will try to incorporate the grammar rules you have learned. Translating and thinking about grammar while creating English sentences is incorrect and should definitely be avoided. Tip number 3. Reading and listening is just not enough. Practice speaking what you hear. Reading, listening, and speaking are the most important aspects of any language. The same is true for English. However, speaking is the only requirement to be fluent. It is quite natural for babies and children to start speaking first, then become fluent, and then learn reading and writing. So the natural order is listening, speaking, reading, and then finally writing. Problem number 1. Isn't it strange that the schools across the world teach children first reading, then writing, then listening, and finally speaking? Although it is different, the main reason is when you're learning English as a second language, you need to read certain material to learn it or understand it. So although the natural order is listening, speaking, reading, and then writing, students across the world are taught to read first, listen, write, and then finally speak. Problem 2. Although many people can read and listen effectively, because that's all they practice, in order to speak fluently, you need to practice a lot of speaking. Don't just stop at the listening portion or just don't read. Understand what you're reading, hear what you're reading, speak out loud to the material you're reading, and practice listening to it. By doing so, you would be able to speak English fluently. Tip number 4. Submerge yourself in English. Being able to speak any language is not dependent upon how smart you are. Anyone can learn to speak any language. This is a proven fact around the world. Anyone can speak at least one language. And this is achieved because you are surrounded by that language constantly. In your country or in your state, you speak your language more constantly because you are surrounded by people who speak the same language. You will notice a lot of people who speak English well went to English speaking school. They can speak English well is not because they went to an English speaking school, but they were constantly surrounded by people who spoke English. Or you can say they had an environment where English was the language of communication. There are many people who study abroad or go to English speaking school but learn very little, because although they go to an English speaking school but meet friends who speak the same language, and hence they don't practice English. You don't have to go anywhere to learn English. You just have to change your environment. You have to create rules with your friends that you're going to only communicate in English. You can also carry an iPod and listen to English sentences when you're traveling. That's the way you're going to create an environment for yourself where you're constantly submerged into English. And you see the results. Soon you're going to become a fluent English speaker. Tip number 5. Study correct material. A common phrase that is incorrect is practice makes perfect. This is far from the truth. Practice will only make you perfect provided you're going to practice permanently and correctly. For example, if you practice an incorrect sentence, you're going to end up saying the sentence incorrectly. So it is important that whatever you study, you have the right material to study. You can log into my website at letstalk.co.in. You'll be able to find a lot of material there which will help you speak more fluent English. Another problem what I see is a lot of students study news. The language in the news is more formal and the content is more political. I would rather suggest watching news is for advanced learners. Only when you have learned the fundamentals of basic English. I hope you'll find these tips useful to improve your English communication skills. If you like this video, kindly put your comments just below this video. You can also subscribe to our channel on YouTube by clicking the subscribe button just above this video. Thank you for watching us. Bye.